Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a field forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Here Daily for Wellness Wednesday, how much water should you drink every day as a farmer? We'll learn about that with Ceara Larson, hydration specialist with Landus. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we're going to take a look at hydration. Again, we spoke about heat illness last week for Wellness Wednesday, and this Wellness Wednesday, we're going to be going over the water side, making sure your body has plenty of it, with hydration specialist with Landus, Ceara Larson. Ceara, thank you so much for joining us, and you are right now based in Australia, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
That is a perfect place to study the need for water because it is very hot there, I believe. Is it a similar heat to what we experience here in Iowa? Is it varied enough to have that type of diversity across the entire country there?
So it's actually a drier heat here. So it's we're actually in the fall right now, or spring, excuse me. So right. Seasons are flipped. Which was a real learning curve. And so I haven't experienced the extreme heat here yet, but from what they've told me, it's not humid at all in the south part.
And that's a pretty huge deal when it comes to hydration and making sure you have enough water and electrolytes involved with what your body needs. So let's just start off right there. We have a difference between dry heat and humidity. Mm-hmm. How does that affect what we do as we are out and about working, and especially when you're a farmer and you're oftentimes out and about all day?
Yeah, so the thing to watch out for, the difference between a humid heat and a dry heat is the water content in the air. So a humid heat has higher water content. And so that's why when you walk outside and you feel like the air is sticking to you, it's really the water molecules that are sticking to you. So your body's main system for cooling down is sweating. And the water content in the air makes a difference on how quickly it evaporates off your skin. So the process of cooling down is actually from the water molecules in your sweat getting evaporated off that pulls heat away from the body. So when it's a dry heat, the water evaporates faster because there's not a lot of water in the air. And so it pulls off the skin and cools you down. Whereas in the humid heat, that's why you're you get sweaty and you stay sweaty. So people that carry around like towels in the summer in the humid heat, that's a good way to cool down because it does the same thing. But that's also why if you're in a dry heat, it can be sneakier, right? Because when it's humid, you know you're sweating, you know how hot it is. And in the dry heat, because the sweat evaporates faster, you can get dehydrated quicker just because it sneaks up on you more. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. Either way, it's really easy to get dehydrated quickly.
And the thing that makes me think of immediately is when it's a dry heat, I do feel like, in my case, skin dries out faster. So my skin feels rougher, more coarse. Is that a similar problem that deals with that doesn't happen with humidity, where your skin itself needs to rehydrate itself, use the water that's normally used to cool yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in general, when you're dehydrated, that's really talking about the concentration of water that's in your body. So, the average concentration of water in your body is around 70%. However, in all of your major organs, it's a higher percentage. And so like your brain is 80% water. And what water does is it essentially makes all of the processes in your body run easier. It's easier for kind of all of the reactions that happen in your body to happen if there's water there. So when it's a dry heat, your body, if it starts to get dehydrated, is trying to pull that water back to where it's needed the most, which is why it's important for your skin to be hydrated, but it's not as important for your skin to be hydrated as it is for your heart to pump blood, right? And so that's kind of your body's adaptation to try to work through it. But hopefully you are hydrating before that happens.
Absolutely. And I'd like to get to the core point of why this
Mhm.
matters and what we need when we talk about having proper hydration. But to start, I want to just ask, is there a reservoir of sorts when it comes to water in our bodies? Where does the water get pulled from? How does that work as it reaches all the parts of us that need it? As you described, it's kind of like a lubricant, an oil that makes the car run more efficiently. You have to pull that from somewhere. Is it our stomachs? Is it our kidneys? Where is that coming from?
Yeah. Yeah. So great question. The short answer is you get water from a lot of different places. A lot of it does come from your stomach through your food and water intake, liquid intake. So it's really you ingest the water because your body doesn't produce water or much of it. And so you're actually ingesting your water and then it's getting filtered into your bloodstream. So um, that's part of why hydration can be so important as well, is because your blood volume is made up of a good amount of water. And so if you have a lower blood volume, your heart has to work harder to pump the blood around your body, right? And so um, that's anytime your heart has to work harder, not ideal. And so then your kidneys are really in charge of keeping those water levels stable for your body. So essentially, your kidneys are your main filtering tool, right? And so what happens is they they receive the liquid to filter out, and if we are hydrated enough, everything's good. Your body says, okay, we need to get rid of any extra weight, right? Because it's not super energy efficient to carry around any extra weight, and water is pretty heavy. So that's when it dispels as urine, right? But when we're dehydrated, then the brain sends a signal to the kidneys and says, okay, we need to conserve water, keep it all together. And so that's where that means you'll still pee, right? But that's where you get the darker urine color. It's because the water content is actually lower when you're dehydrated because your body is trying to keep it all together.
Right, because that's one of the ways our body expels a lot of unusable things like blood cells, etc., that comes through
Mhm.
our urine, and the coloration is because that's kind of the coloration of those things, as opposed to the clear water that we want to have it be closer to. But we don't want it to be fully clear. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct. Yep. So typically, it's all on a scale, like most things involving the body are. So typically, they say like a light lemonade color is kind of because if you're now it is very hard to overhydrate, but it can happen. And essentially, if you find that your urine is too light, then um, it's almost messing with some of the other filtration systems. So, because your body's so focused on getting rid of the water that it can kind of have trouble filtering out some other things.
Okay. Okay. So I want to focus kind of on what we need then, because
Mhm.
I think we went over this last week with Dr. Carey as well, where I didn't have it at the time, but this time I came prepared. I have my water bottle. This is what I use for my water
Love
bottle.
it.
I've been using it for like 10 years. So it actually has some of the, here we go, some of the volume here. Now,
Great.
I believe the discussion was you are not supposed to drink more than like this amount right here in a setting. Like this is too much in a
Yep.
setting. You're supposed to have a slower duration. Can you
Yep.
discuss a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So that goes back to the function of the kidneys. So your body is monitoring essentially how much of kind of everything we need, right? There's a lot of complex systems. So, but your kidneys, their main job, like I said, is to filter through the liquid, right? So if you are just chugging water, you get to that certain point, and then your body goes, okay, we have enough, thank you. And so anything past there, you're just going to pee out. So it can reduce the effectiveness of the water you're drinking, because it's like if you were waiting behind a dam to go swimming and you got like this little drip of water, right? Eventually that pool would fill up and you could swim. But instead, if you just break the dam down, then you get pushed out and end up in a creek down the road, right? So
Right,
it's
right.
kind of the same thing there, where your body at some point says, okay, we have enough, but then what happens is you actually don't keep as much water as what you actually need, because it was overwhelmed by the initial intake you gave it.
Why do you think it is that we need reminders to drink? This is something our body needs. So our body will tell us, "Hey, you're thirsty. You need to drink."
Mhm.
You feel that concept of thirst. It's,
Mhm.
it's similar to hunger, right? We feel that. Why is it that we need to be told through, this type of conversation? I know from
Yeah,
experience that I forget to drink water for many long
absolutely.
periods of time. Why do we need to be reminded? Why can't we just trust our
Yeah.
body to know, oh, I'm thirsty, so I'm going to go drink some water now?
That's a great question. There's a couple reasons. One, our bodies are super adaptable, right? They're made to survive. And so if they are sending you a bunch of thirst cues and you're ignoring them, the body will adapt and try to find other ways to make you want water. So and the thirst cues themselves, if you detrain them, then they can be hard to recognize. And so typically, if you're waiting until you're thirsty, you're already kind of behind the ball, because that's so for you to get a thirst cue. What happens is your kidneys are filtering, they're going through the liquids in your body, and they're saying, "Ooh, we don't have enough water." So then that signal, it takes time for that signal to get transferred up. And by then, you're already dehydrated, because the signal for thirst is dehydration, right? And so, in particular, this is something that we talked about with our athletes at the Jays quite a bit, about staying ahead of hydration, because if you're dehydrated, that already means you're starting to see some of the negative effects of it. And
That's an
so,
interesting point.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you there,
no,
but I'd like to just ask, why
no.
is it then that we need to stay ahead if our body tells us, oh, you're thirsty at the point of hydration? Isn't that a sign that that's just what we adapted to be able to be with? Why do we need to stay ahead of
Yeah.
it? And then you can continue with what you were going with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. The biggest thing is that, yes, your body can still perform when it's dehydrated, but it's suboptimal, right? And especially when we are trying to look for kind of not passive ways, but easier ways to keep performance up. Staying ahead of hydration essentially means that you never hit your dip. So, because as soon as you start to get dehydrated, you see um, some cognitive decline. You can't make decisions as well. You see some extra strain on your cardiovascular system. And you
Anxiousness.
see anxiousness, absolutely. And you also see declines in performance. So you're just not operating as optimally as you can be. So that's why if you wait till the thirst signal, it means that you're essentially already in that dip. Whereas if you're staying ahead of it, it's more like preventing the dip from happening.
You are a person who studies
Yes.
water, how it affects us. Hydration is your biggest topic. So, what is something to watch out for? What's some woo or misinformation you commonly see as someone who studies hydration that you think folks should be aware of that they might have in their head that's just not true?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a couple that come to mind. One of the most common questions I get is, well, can I drink too much water? The short answer is yes, you can, but it is enough water that if you are overhydrated, we have other things we need to talk about. Um, we need to talk
Interesting.
about
Yeah.
why you are drinking that much liquid in a day, because it's realistically it's just a ridiculous percentage of your body weight that would actually make you overhydrated to the point where it's harmful.
You're shutting down organs. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, like I said, that's really where you get into like the drowning territory. So, like I said, we got to talk about other things if that's the case. I think the other kind of common misconception is to be good at hydrating, you need to drink a full gallon of water a day. You know, everyone thinks of the classic high school jock who's carrying around the big jug of water, right? And they're probably hydrating well. I hope so, or they're just doing it for the show. Either way. But the biggest thing is that if you find ways to just add in a little bit more hydration in your day, that is still helpful, right? So sometimes I think that's another reason that people need to be reminded about hydration is it's a little thing. It's hard. It can be hard to remember, particularly if you aren't carrying around a water bottle all day. And, you know, so sometimes that can be the barrier is, well, I don't know how to figure out how to drink a whole gallon of water in a day. So I'm just not going to do it. When in reality, it's if you can find little parts of your day to just add more water in, right? So maybe it's drinking a glass of water like when you wake up or before you go to bed. Or maybe it's making sure you have water with you when you're eating a meal, right? And that doesn't have to be your only drink, but having times where it's paired or planned out in your day to help you rehydrate, that is still helpful. It's not a all or nothing response.
I'm glad you said that because this guy right here is this is 32 ounces, 1,000 milliliters right here. That's so I'd need about almost 3.5 of these, I believe, somewhere in that realm for a full gallon every day. And I am lucky if I drink 1.5 of these full every day, and that would be a lot for that day. And so I think of that. And then I think of one of my biggest issues, and I know we really want to relate this to the farmer, so I'm trying to relate it in terms of like using the bathroom is often a issue that I will run into when, for me, talking about drinking enough water, and for other people as well. It's like I don't want to have to pee every 15 minutes, and
Absolutely.
so what does that mean when you're drinking water? You're trying to have it regularly. You're trying to stay healthier, but then you just have to use the bathroom all the time. It's extremely disruptive to your workflow, what you're doing. You can't, you're driving a tractor, you got to get out of your tractor every 15 minutes to pee. Like it's not really feasible. So what does that mean when you have to use the bathroom that much? And is there a way to balance that side of it with how much water you need to drink?
Absolutely. That's a great question. There's a couple sides to that. One, if you are hydrating enough, you will go to the bathroom slightly more, but it should not be like it should still be where it's at convenient times. Typically, the people that you see that are like having to pee every 15 minutes, that's where they're drinking more than that set amount, right? Because that's your body's trying to get rid of it. So that's typically if you see people that are just chugging water, that's your body's trying to filter it out.
I'm a chugger. I struggle to just sip on water. I need to like drink the full 8 ounces in one go.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's your body takes in what it needs, and then it says, let's get rid of the rest. So that's where you incorporate in more bathroom breaks. There's also, if that's a concern, it's also worth checking in with a dietitian because there are things you can do in your diet to help you retain more water. That is not as much my specialty, but worth.
Good to know.
Yeah, worth mentioning.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool. That's another topic, and I did talk about this with Carrie a little bit, Dr. Carrie, is the taste. I like the taste of water. I enjoy drinking water, but as an example, my sister does not. She just refuses to drink normal water and has to find other ways to hydrate. What are other positive ways to keep yourself hydrated if drinking water straight is not your, I guess almost a joke here, cup of tea?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great question. I think this is another point where this is another point that can be a barrier for hydration for people. They don't like water, which happens, right? It's more about then finding other drinks or other supplements that you can add into the water. So tea is great. It's flavored water. That's right.
What about
Then there's
coffee? Can you have coffee instead?
instead of water, no, but you can. But a good way to, again, you can pair water with other drinks. So instead of having, you know, 2 cups of coffee in the morning, you can have 1 cup of coffee and 1 glass of water and kind of sip them at the same time.
As a bit of woo, that is something that I have actually seen on social media where it said a cup of coffee dehydrates you, where the caffeine in it makes it so you actually are losing water than what you gain from it. And I've seen multiple conflicting people say different things around that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say anytime that you're seeing advice or any kind of facts like that, anytime they put it in extremes, it's probably not true, right? Or anytime it's in an absolute, because your body just doesn't work in absolutes. So coffee definitely does not help hydrate you, even though there's water in it. It really depends on what's going on in your body, whether it's uh, whether it's hydrating you or not, or dehydrating you or not. There are times where you can drink coffee and be more dehydrated from it, but there are also times where you can drink coffee and it doesn't dehydrate you. So that's it's never
There's
a
nuance. There's nuance
exactly
to it.
exactly
Interesting.
yeah
Interesting.
yeah.
So, if there was one takeaway
hmm
for a farmer who's out and about trying to stay as healthy as they can, but
hmm
in a reasonable way, you can't change your entire lifestyle all at
Absolutely.
once, what would be the best tips you would give someone for just making it through their day to make sure they have enough liquids in them?
Absolutely. The way we've been talking through it, there's really kind of three main things. The first is, I know I've mentioned this already, but find ways to build water into your day when you are not out at the field. So, whether that's in the morning when you wake up with your breakfast and coffee, at night before you go to bed, fold it into your meals. If you find ways to kind of have it already built into something that you're doing, that's a very low load way to help just add more water to your day. Tip number two is someone made a joke about some of the younger generations making water bottles trendy and carrying them around.
Right. Yeah.
One, they're fun, but there is something to it's much easier to hydrate if you have a water bottle on you, right?
Right.
If and so sometimes you can improve your hydration just by having a water bottle with you and then making a plan of, okay, anytime I look at it, I'm going to take 2 sips and then put it back down. And so again, that's another kind of sneaky low load way of just it's here, it's with me. Let's get some water. And the last tip is you can carry around some or just keep some electrolyte packets handy or anything that can, like, it changes the taste, but so that helps. But electrolyte packets can also help you rehydrate and help you retain more of what you're drinking as well. So that's, you can keep them in a bag, put a packet in your equipment, put it in your lunch. Just that's a way to kind of mix it up through your day, but make sure that you're refueling sufficiently.
One last fun question before we go. Um, as a scientist, as someone who studies this, what is something about hydration that we just don't know? We just don't understand how it works or why it works, and it's kind of something everyone wants to figure out, but it hasn't happened just yet, and that's something to look forward to as folks learn more.
Ooh, that is a great question. Um, the first thing that comes to mind is actually in the sports world. So we know hydration is linked very closely with muscle cramping, particularly when people are in heat stress.
Like when you drink a bunch of water and you have a stomach cramp as you're running or something like that.
Not quite. So
Not
it's
quite
more
that.
like if you're working out in a really hot environment and then you ever had like a calf cramp at night that wakes you up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those kinds of muscle cramps, the ones that hurt.
Oh.
Not that stomach cramps don't hurt, but
Yeah, the kind that keep you awake. Yeah.
exactly, right? And so there has been some evidence so far to show that hydration and these muscle cramps are really closely linked, but there hasn't been a ton of research in how it actually affects it or
Right.
what are the long-term effects of dehydration and muscle cramping. So I think that'll be a really interesting space for the performance side. But again, I think that'll transfer over to the real life application as well.
Well, there you go. It's something to look forward to. That's one of the cool parts about science is we always get to learn more. We always get to find out more. We get to delve into nuance on that. We have with us Ceara Larson, the hydration specialist with Landus for Wellness Wednesday, focusing on hydration, making sure you have enough water. Ceara, thank you so much for your time today on Farm Your Daily.
Thank you so much.
This is Farm Your Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast as well as our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.